after starting to do a bit of marketing that I understood. That was just a tactic.
It's always 15 minutes. It's always been 15 minutes since they last aired the commercial somewhere. At least now with all these websites, they can actually put in a timer, but then like you let the timer go out and you abandon your cart and they're like, oh, how about we give you a better discount?
Yeah, and then it becomes gamification. 100%.
Reminds me, so I need to see if we can get like a fun exit intent pop up. Like, oh, we can see you're scrolling away. Would you like to sign up for our thing?
Let's not do that for the website. It's pop-ups on websites are always like, come on. But we'll find other ways to get people on the newsletter and on the tech tips. Most of that is if go to a networking event, and you give me a business card. Just signed up for my tech tips.
Yeah. The next iteration of the business card is definitely that QR code.
Yes.
Like sign up for a thing.
Absolutely.
Well, and then we don't have to have the ever-shifting list of services.
It is here at 11, but I'll give it a few more minutes for people to probably getting the reminder to come on in. So actually, this is really timely. I was just doing a lot of prompting right before this call for some follow-up stuff on one of the case studies there. So lead scrubber is almost ready, Ryan.
That's going to be so beautiful.
Almost ready. I feel bad for the poor marketing interns from Marshfield High who have been replaced by an AI.
Hey, they can come in and, judge them against the lead scrubbers.
That actually wouldn't be a half bad case study unto itself. The high schooler versus the...
Yeah, like John Henry versus the steam
shovel. Yeah.
Hopefully with less death, though.
Oh, yeah. That would actually be a great case study for like, all right, the AI ran this and obviously it did it in like rapid time, but you put your own Googling skills against, this and we'll see what you come up with.
Their Googling skills they're like, we actually made the phone call skills because, if they're doing I think the value add is doing the phone call because I was talking with some of my fellow marketing managers and they're like, inbound people care less about like running into a robot directing them around because they just want to get to like a person they can talk to. So if AI or whatever can direct them through the phone tree, great. But like outbound, if you get like a robot call and they're like, no, this is a scam. It's just like all associated with like scams. So people just hang up.
Yeah, unfortunately. Right. Well, we'll have a couple other folks trickle in as we go, but we might as well get started. And I'll go ahead and kick it off. Well, welcome, everyone. I'm Will McPhee, President of System Support, still getting used to saying that 2 years later. But we have been trying to do webinars on a more regular basis, at least once a month, on topics of interest for business owners and the small business community here in Eastern Massachusetts. And while we've done a lot of security ones for a long time, obviously the big buzzword out there now is AI. And so we have been really jumping on with staying ahead of the curve with some of the AI pieces and trying to take it from either really quickly written articles that you might see in the news versus, trying to watch OpenAI, the company that owns ChatGPT, trying to watch one of their videos and figure out, all right, what the heck do I do with this thing? So we're trying to make most of these series around taking a concept and turning it rapidly into a case study so that somebody can kind of understand, like, all right, how can I use this right away to get something of value? So this might be an ongoing series of prompt engineering, just kind of taking the framework, showing how we build something out and exploring case studies and the way around it and what might make sense for people. And especially too, if anyone has any suggestions of how we would love to hear them, because in having it come in, being able to solve the problem helps add to the case studies and helps add to everyone's education to stay competitive. So today we're talking about prompt engineering for business. And what this is really the dirty secret is this is just how to ask better questions. Prompt engineering at a high level really quickly is really how do you write a question in a way that a machine quickly understands it and is able to give you the result that you're looking for. I have used the analogy a ton of times that the AI is a very well-educated intern that you can only communicate through email. I like using the example, he's a Harvard educated, or they're a Harvard educated intern. However, they live on the family's estate in Vermont, and Vermont is so awesome that they're not coming to the office. But they know that they're really smart and they happy to do an internship. So, hey, send it we can only communicate through email. You can attach things to email and you can craft this response to try and get a better result back. And the intern responds immediately. You can coach it and it is always focused in, but it can get led astray. It can be tricked. So again, really smart intern that only works through email is a great framework as we move through kind of better understanding how to write prompts. So today's agenda, we're going to do a brief introduction to AI agents just to kind of play around with like, all right, how am I interfacing with these things? Hitting prompt engineering at a high level, going through the GCES framework. That's just an acronym for each step that you take. So it's not too like government-y. And then some AI agents in action, those case studies. So let's go ahead and dive in for AI agents. So what is an AI agent? Kind of like I said, it's a virtual intern that never sleeps. It's always there. It's ready to answer questions. And so really, it's something that's going to help your personal productivity and take some of the mundane tasks out of either having to read, digest, get through something, and it can adapt and learn to some of the specifics. Now, the idea of a really smart intern or virtual assistant, this is very comparative. And one thing that's very important, even if this webinar was about, hey, how to better leverage virtual assistants, someone in the Philippines, someone in India, someone overseas for better running your business, you have to treat them just like an employee. So AI agents require management. There's an adjustment period of while you work with the agent as they start to learn where to best meet you. Is it just going to be emails back and forth, or is there going to be reference material that it should read ahead of time? And then also you want to make sure there's the appropriate bounds. So using the virtual assistant example, again, if you hired a virtual assistant in the Philippines, you wouldn't give them access to every single login that you have so they can see all your files all at once. Maybe some things you want to keep personal. Maybe your tax return isn't a great thing that the AI agent has access to. Maybe certain HR items that really aren't privy to what the agent is going to be talking to. You want to make sure that you put the appropriate boundaries as to what you're going to ask the agent to do. And the number one takeaway for that is that if you are not paying for the AI service in some way, shape, or form, paying for tokens, paying for a subscription, paying for a license, the answer is you are the product, meaning that whatever you are putting into the model is being assembled into the training data for it to learn for other people. So if you are prompting for things that are related to your business specifically, could be services you offer, prices you offer, anything that could be related to communications you've had with one of your clients. If you would not be comfortable taking that document and putting it up on Reddit under an anonymous username, right? Not like Will McPhee System Support, Marshfield, Massachusetts is the Reddit handle or whatever. But if you wouldn't be comfortable taking that data and putting it on Reddit and asking questions about it, don't use the free ChatGPT or the free license for it. The paid stuff stays internal. That's what you want. I know that, in the previous, Google is free for a search engine. Yeah, sure, you are the product for your marketing data as you go along for, when you're searching something on Google, you use a quick short phrase and Google's kind of learning some of your marketing behavior and it's specific to your profile. And sure, it's an exchange at the end of the day that I get the information I want quickly in exchange for you, for Google learning my marketing. Because AI agents are using data that is very specific to what you do, your emails, your documents, your company policies, you do not want to use the free stuff because it will show up other places. There's a famous case study of Samsung engineers were playing with ChatGPT, uploaded a bunch of design information about one of their new phones, and Motorola found it. So don't put the stuff you care about up into the free versions. All right. So that was a quick rundown of AI agents. There really are as the service that you're using, either a built-in license one that you build yourself, one that you have us build. And so now let's get into what is prompt engineering and how do you get a consistent response of what you're looking for that gets you to the next step on a regular basis. So Ryan came up with this example because it's a great starter. I don't drive up to Chick-fil-A and just say, give me food, because I would love a spicy chicken sandwich with waffle fries and a lemonade, and I have a specific intention of what food I want. and I have to tell the very nice person who is normally working the orders at Chick-fil-A exactly what it is that I'm looking for. And then they would also give the appropriate feedback if I walked up and I said I would go to Chick-fil-A and then I start asking for filet mignon. They will look at me a little funny and saying this context is off. So prompt engineering is really about asking the AI for answers that you're looking for in a specific way with specific content, specific context, and specific sources. And yeah, sometimes you do have to be a little bit sneaky. The AI always aims to please. It's not very adversarial unless you start telling it that. But you do have to get, just like if you're working with an intern, you have to ask the questions in the right way to elicit the response you're looking for. So be specific. Whatever you are looking for needs to be bang on for everything. If you want, I want an Excel sheet, you could say, I want an Excel sheet, this many columns, no capital letters, following the more dialed in. Again, think of an intern or a virtual assistant of being very specific of how you want something to look, context, making sure that I want it to look this way. I want you to use the following sources. Here they are. Here are the places that you can reference to be able to learn more about what it is that I'm doing. Here are either the documents I want you to reference. You can even say, I only want you to reference these. Don't go look anywhere on the web. A great example is like a HR handbook. If you're building an AI agent to take off employee questions about how much time off do I get? How much sick time do I have? What's the dress code policy? It's very easy to build an AI agent that just references your employee handbook and answers questions on it. But you also don't want it wandering off and then it finds something about the state of Texas and then starts telling your Massachusetts employees about Texas employment law. It might not be a good thing. So context is very important. And that's a blend of either saying maybe who the audience is, who the message is intended for, or where you're coming from. I'm in this environment. I'm trying to do this. And then also iterate. Nobody gets a question. It's very rare you get a question right on the first time. So you just iterate, refine, say, this was right, this was wrong, just the same way you would coach with an employee. All right. So that's really it in a nutshell. It's just specific context and iteration, being really dialed in as to what you're looking for. And so while that is a little bit generic for guidelines, and it's like, yeah, sure, this is really nothing new that I've learned for any type of attempting to communicate with employees reference, the GCES framework is really helpful because it can be a quick little 4-box checklist for if you are writing a prompt for something specific to be like, have I checked all the boxes that I think this should be a decent prompt? And this actually comes out of Microsoft Learn's platform for Copilot about the recommended approach for being able to build prompts. So GCES stands for goal, context, expectation, and source. I just call it GEX. I'm sure the E and the C could, for swapping that over, but, looking really quickly at whatever prompt you've written, if you go, all right, does that match GEX? You go, oh, nope, I missed an expectation. You can go back and adjust the prompt to be able to get what you're looking for a little faster. All right. So let's start with goal. This is the easy one. What do you want to achieve? Using the Chick-fil-A example, give me food, right? This is clearly articulating what you want. And you might have to break a big concept down into simpler action items. So it could be, for give me food, and be like, all right, I want main course, a side, and a drink and something sweet. The goal is looking at specifically what you are trying to get out of it. And this is the main objective of your prompt. This is what you're trying to get there. You need it well defined so that the AI stays focused, relevant to what you're trying to do. And a great example, and we're going to build a prompt slowly as we go, one framework piece at a time so you can see how this builds upon itself. So one could be that, all right, summarize this article in the 3 main bullet points. Saw something about, here's a great example. I just got an email from Blue Cross Blue Shield about changes to the health insurance for specific medications. All right, summarize this email into 3 main bullet points, right? So that's the goal. I'm just looking for 3 main bullet points, but I could get 3 very different bullet points and I could ask the same question over and over and keep getting different answers. So let's try and dial it in a little bit more to make sure that the result I'm looking for is going to be what I want. So let's add some context. So what background information, besides me just giving a specific article, would help provide additional understanding and give a more relevant response to what I'm looking for. So, if I was to summarize that article just from my own personal understanding versus summarizing that same Blue Cross Blue Shield email for my employees or just for a LinkedIn blog post, the audience and context match up pretty well. So, the AI can't really anticipate, is a giant machine, intern, very busy intern, very far away, hasn't heard some of the other conversations you've been having. It doesn't automatically know what you're thinking. So it doesn't know if this article is who is this article being summarized for? And sometimes the AI will prompt back with questions if it isn't given context. But, the goal here is for us to be better communicators while we're prompting the AI to make sure that we're going to get out what we get out and we get it faster by asking the right question first. A lot of Tim Ferriss's 4-hour work week things come to mind here for, hey, what better questions to ask to get things dialed in? So context, you want to be concise, clear, relevant facts, figures, and data. So taking the same prompt building, summarize this article into 3 bullet points, goal for the executive team's meeting on the quarterly earnings. So now the AI has some context that, okay, this is a boardroom full of this is a room full of executives. It has to do with quarterly earnings. And maybe the article is something on what the competition has been doing. So now the AI has some context as to who I'm trying to summarize this for and what might be relevant for them. So next is expectations. And especially when it comes to AI, this is where you really start to nail in what you want things to look like. So format, tone, specific elements you really want to include. For those of you who've played around with ChatGPT or Copilot a little bit, you might notice that it has an affinity for putting emojis into the responses. And while that might be great for certain contexts, most of the time when you're having professional communications, it doesn't look great. So one of the things you might want to add to make sure that you don't have to have it regenerate the whole thing again is say, hey, in the prompt, summarize this article with these 3 for the executive team meeting on quarterly earnings and you could be very specific, without any emojis. And I actually would recommend you put that in for any prompts that you have, just as a go-to, because for some reason the AI just loves putting them in. And that could be too, hey, outline how the response should be structured. You can have length, format, and tone. So for summarizing the article into 3 bullet points for the executive team's meeting on quarterly earnings, the whole summary should be less than 200 words and be in a clear professional voice. So that way too, the summary point isn't going to be 3 bullet points that each one of them is War and Peace. It's 200 words total for this one article about what the competition was most recently doing. So far we're through the goal, 3 bullet points, context, going for an executive team summary, and expectations, less than 200 words, clear professional voice. And I should have put in no emojis because it does it every time. So the last piece is source. And this one, frankly, is pretty easy. Any specific data, documents, references you want the AI to use. Could be websites, the article itself, comment section somewhere, anywhere that has the written word. The AI can go look and gather more relevant information. This is especially helpful in models like Copilot that run on your internal data and can reference your OneDrive, your email, your Teams meeting, and your SharePoint sites. That if you point it towards specific data sources like, hey, look at my folder for all of my technical business reviews that I've had with clients for when I'm looking at this client, is their Microsoft Secure Score comparable to other clients of the same size? Goes through, reads through all of it. Okay, this many machines. Yep, this Secure Score. Say, yep, no, good, excellent, good, or bad. So that's actually an example I've used internally. So for sources, be specific. This folder, this document, this website. Same way that you're trying to, again, using the intern example. Don't say, hey, go look at the SharePoint. Tell them where in the SharePoint, because then that way they know exactly what folder they're going to, and that way they don't pull the wrong one by accident. And then if you don't have any external sources, hey, we're looking for some type of pricing policy that we might not have internally, use best practices or general knowledge. You can name certain standards. I know one thing that I've used for source a lot is, hey, use nonviolent communication to try and respond to this email, and it'll do the whole framework thing. And then the last piece is, hey, make sure the AI has access to the source that you want, for whatever you're using, that I can actually get to it. And if you're in Work Copilot, this is a quick tip. If you use a forward slash while in Work Copilot, you can quickly reference documents in your OneDrive. So if you have the name of the document, you forward slash type it out, and it'll quick link to that document so that you don't have to go find it, drag it, and attach to it. So, for example, slash 2025 quarterly goals PDF to provide additional insights to the article summary. So let's put all that together. Goal, context, expectations, source. All right, what would I prompt the AI for this fictitious article summary? A little funnily, it's, maybe 30 something words, and I'm looking for a 200-word summary. But summarize this article into 3 bullet points for the executive team's meeting on the quarterly earnings. Summary should be less than 200 words and be in a clear professional voice. Please refer to slash 2025 quarterly goals PDF to provide additional insights to the article summary. So, using this article summary of competition, what the competition is doing, hey, is there anything in this article that could harm what our quarterly goals have been recently based on the reference document here? So, key takeaways for using this prompting framework of GEX or GCES. The better prompts are with better questions. And if you check those 4 boxes, you'll get better results than a real simple give me food type question. A key piece is for us to start moving away from, when we want information, we're so used to Googling or like a quick search term, few relevant words, and then a web page source comes up, and we sort through the results that Google gives us, look through it, and see if it's relevant. We are doing a lot of the intelligence work on our side in looking at results from a few quick words. The flip for AI is that not only do, hey, use the paid version because the free ones are learning off of you, but also it's up on us to ask the better questions, which, helps us in every facet of our life too, because you'll see in a sneaky piece coming later, this should sound a little familiar, especially if you've read a lot of business books. And there's always the caveat too of, this is an emerging technology. This is only coming into the vernacular in the past few months. There is a learning curve. If it doesn't work the first try, there is a way to get to the framework where it eventually will start to behave. So the dirty secret, especially for GCES, is this should sound familiar, because I'm a huge fan of the book Nonviolent Communication. It's been an awesome book for reading, for helping me just be able to better communicate with people. Helps me be more empathetic. And frankly, the book has a framework, just like for prompting, for observation, feelings, needs, request. And I put one that came, ironically, I asked the AI for this, and I think it pulled the example that's right out of the books. But if you look at this, I'll go back one. If you look at this for the structure of the prompt, observation, dishes have been piling up in the sink the past couple days. Feelings, overwhelmed and frustrated. Need, I value a tidy shared space and mutual consideration. Request, would you be willing to wash your dishes the same day? This effectively is an AI prompt for a roommate to do their dishes. And you read the Nonviolent Communication book, you'll see a whole bunch of stuff in it for hey, it opens a degree of conversation and come to a better point of understanding. But oddly familiar, isn't it? From a book written well before this AI thing was ever a thing, but a framework for making requests feeds into a response that you're looking for. So the dirty secret is that prompt engineering is really nothing new. It's just making sure that you ask better questions. So as soon as I saw the Microsoft Learn pieces, I was like, this sounds oddly familiar. It's just different letters. So I thought that was pretty cool. So again, prompting the AI is the same skill as communicating with other human beings. It's the same thing. The good news is luckily the AI doesn't start thinking about oh my God, is this person mad at me? Or, they don't know that I've been trying to deal with the following emotional difficulties. And also too, hopefully it's, for the AI, you're mainly asking for just really professional things. You're not trying to get into how do I make my life full of meaning and feeling fulfilled type conversations. But again, communicating with the AI is just like communicating with other people. Well, awesome. All right, well, let's jump into some case studies. So I got 3 here today, kind of in order of more involved prompts. So I started one with analyzing a CSV export of some company data. The names have been removed to protect the innocent. So starting with something spitting out from CSV data, so some words, some numbers, analyzing a sales call. So the models work best in the written word. They're getting better at pictures and diagrams. That is really early learning curve stuff, is pictures and diagrams. But the written word is what the large language model is really built on. So if you have a transcript of a sales call or a transcript of either a training, this is another cool way to look at a prompt for like, that's how that could go. And then the last one, which is the lead scrubber I was alluding to, and Ryan and I's banter at the beginning, is going through web pages for marketing data. Now, the sales call, the result of the CSV export, the sales call, and the web pages are in a separate handout, and I'm going to reference a Word document because it doesn't fit in PowerPoint. So this can get a little long, but those handouts are available for folks who've attended in. For those watching the recording later, absolutely reach out and we can get those to you. But let's go over a CSV file. This is a pretty straightforward one. So this is just something that out of any of this is great for looking at financial reports, QuickBooks. Today's example is going to be ticket time entries for a client. I see a lot of my clients are on here, and in case you're wondering how I do some of my ticket time report pieces, ta-da! So I have a CSV file of ticket time entries for clients, and I'm preparing for an account management meeting for going over with them what's going on with the tickets. So using GCES, I'm going to create a prompt. So attached is a CSV file source that is a table of ticket time entries for an IT help desk categorized between internal, covered service, and Reliant billable time context. Please create a 5 bullet point summary goal that covers total billable time, covered service time, reoccurring ticket issues, and whether the client's users are satisfied. So why go over a CSV file? Why go through this prompt and, what am I doing here? We're generating data all the time in what we're doing, especially for anything with an online platform. But the data kind of gets generated and stays there. And unless somebody goes in and starts looking at it, analyzing it, you don't really get any intelligence coming out of it. So while it might not be a lack of knowledge, it could just be personnel. It could just be time. We're all busy. We're all trying to keep up. And sitting down to go through each of the ticket time entries, especially over a quarter, that's a lot of work, a lot of time entries, a lot of language. So being able to use the AI to quickly run through the spreadsheet to look through the data gets me those 5 bullet points pretty quickly. And it can analyze large data sets beyond so incredibly fast. And my favorite part, no more trying to fight Excel for the appropriate, like, okay, I have a wrapped text and it's too big, and tons of, you get around all of that. And then you just ask a quick question. All right, I need the 5 bullet point takeaways from the stuff that I care about. So it really frees you up. So next up are the results. There's a quick piece of it here, but I'm going to bring up the Word document just to be able to better show, what's going on for this prompt. So this is what I got back in giving a CSV of ticket time. And yep, there's our good old emojis that came out. So it gave me the 5 bullet points. Total billable time, recorded 28.83 hours under this, 0.75 there. There is no specific billable time, which means it was all covered, right? Reoccurring tickets, several tickets appeared multiple times, suggesting ongoing or complex issues. And then it gave me how many time entries were against specific tickets. I had to strip names so that those wouldn't come up for this call. It goes through of, hey, what's the most dominant time type? Covered service. It gave a sentiment analysis based on the 92 notes of 7 positive mentions, and there were no negative mentions. It says the client's generally satisfied. And then gave an opportunity for proactive management that said, hey, you might want to go take a look at this ticket based on what you saw. Not bad for a response of feeding it a fast turnaround, high level summary and a sentiment analysis that I'm not going to be able to write a macro, and I would really just going to have to kind of go off a feel for what was a quick spreadsheet.
Yeah, you'd have to be like, oh, these are positive words that people might use, but thankfully, like the large language model, someone has spent like $40 billion or some other ridiculous amount of money to be like, These are nice words.
Yeah, and be able to just grab it buried within whatever the notes back and forth on tickets might be. So, and then negatives, summary points are somewhat generic. What could I have asked to get more specifics? If the original data had names, title, tickets, that could have given me a little more insight. But purely for the sake of this, I stripped that out just to protect privacy. Yeah, the no ticket numbers with no titles. And then I could even ask a follow-up one that, like, all right, if I was going to give this to a client, what questions would a client have about this summary? So, could say the client is a health benefits expert of a relatively small shop. What questions would this client have about this ticket summary? Head that off to at the pass. So that's the first one. And that's a pretty easy one that you could even take one of these and just run straight with, all right, take my profit and loss for the past month or past 6 months. What are some trends? What are some things that are going in here? And QuickBooks does a great job of shoving stuff out to Excel. So if you were to play around, but again, this also harkens back to the why do you get the pay version? If you use the free ChatGPT to take a look at your financials, you just gave it your financials. Paid versions, please, for the love of God, it's worth the money. All right, next one up. Sales call transcripts. And now the prompt is not going to be a quick GCES. We're going to really start diving into what type of a prompt this could be. So for sales organizations, this is really powerful. This is really starting to get into much more. These might be prompts that you have saved that you just copy and paste when the time comes, or if you're really advanced and you have the ability to set up a basic software environment, you can put it into automation software. So let's take a look at this sales call transcript. This is a longer, more involved one. It reads more like a policy document that you would have management say, this is the official sales transcript analysis for SDR meetings, right? And then this also assumes that, hey, you have a transcript of the call. Again, has to be in the written word. Sure, there are AIs that can take transcription. Transcription software is a great case study for the legal world, but it's written word does best. So again, why, especially for sales call transcript, you have a manager that, has to sit there and listen to the call. If it's a 20-minute call, the manager has to sit there for 20 minutes and listen through it. And instead of having to listen back through, transcribe, and then go, oh, that mistake, and have all that fun part, you instead can have like the straight transcript. You can have the analyses run pretty quickly, and you can identify patterns and give very objective feedback to any business development reps or salespeople that you have. And you might get some additional insights from calls. And a lot of VoIP phone systems have call transcripts, and you can start using them for saying, hey, what are some things that we can do better here? So let's take a look at that prompt. So as I said, this is long. This is quite long. So the sales call prompt starts with, and especially too, for testing your own, see which some of these lines are either a goal, a context, an expectation, or a source. So an identity is a great way to say context. You're an advanced AI specializing in rating sales calls transcripts across a number of performance dimensions. You could even say for identity, you could pick a character from Glengarry Glen Ross if you cared. You could pick, I'm trying to think of any other famous sales coaches. My mind draws a blank. You can use celebrities, especially if they have a lot of written word. Identity is a fun piece of context to play with, to be able to see what different information you get out of some of your prompts. But in this one, it's very straightforward. Goals are very explicitly listed, how well the salesperson performed across multiple dimensions, clear and actionable scores used to assess a given call, and concise and actionable feedback. So those are very clear goals that you're looking to get out. Beliefs and approach. A lot of this is more expectation and context. We're looking to better understand the business from the selling business context, analyzing the call based on the transcript. And then, hey, here's the official pitch. So this is, for source, referencing some of the original scripts and documentation you might have. How much did they deviate from what was the official script that you paid the training company a lot of money for? And then also, how are they doing well on fundamentals? Is their pitch well aligned? And then being able to, there's some more context as to what the scoring rubric actually is. So for sales call performance, this is, hey, I want the results to look the same every time. There's going to be a section. It's a 15-word summary. There's a section called core failures and some examples of the core failures. And then an example of recommendations were 10 to 15 word bullet points for each one. So that's as you can see, that one was much longer. That's a page and change of a prompt. So, you might have a 5-page transcript plus a page prompt, and then that's going to give you that repeatable piece on the end for the same, getting similar results across those multiple transcripts. And you don't have to write those each time. I'll go ahead and minimize that. And then I do see one question from one of the members about which paid AI is the best one, or which one I would recommend using. It would really depend on what you're looking to do. All the models are not necessarily created equal. However, it kind of depends on which cloud productivity platform you're already using. So if you're in Google Workspace, using Gemini is fine. And why do you want to use the one in your workspace? And that's because that AI model is already set up to play nicely with the data you already have. Chances are you've already worked really hard on policy procedures and other guides for your company that are already written out, you've already worked on or already paid somebody a lot of money for. And you don't want to have to try and, all right, I bought this third-party Claude, and now that I've bought Claude, I have to figure out how to get it to hook into this, and I don't want to update it here. And now I have to figure out this integration. If you're in Google Workspace and you use Gemini, it's going to get you where you want to go. You're in Microsoft, you use Copilot, it's going to get you where you want to go. Plus, it's one less login to remember, one less web page to go to. It all comes from some of the central pieces that you're at. And it makes it really easy for that model to get more context, your emails, your calendar, your Teams messages, other documents that you have as you go along. I have found if you are really heavy in the I want to write my own code world, ChatGPT and Claude are incredible. But those are very like, here is all this JavaScript code. I need you to analyze this and do this. But based on a lot of our audience, that doesn't really match up too much. It's very specific to what we do, but not so much to, if you're reading a lot of policy documents and stuff like that. All right, so now this prompt is the fun one. This is one where AI can really do some crazy things. And this is analyzing a web page for marketing data. This is a little more advanced. It requires a lot of steps to get to the point where you can feed this information into an AI, have it pull the relevant information, put it in the right bins, and get it ready to go back into your marketing platform. This shows how much context some prompts can have and how much detail. Now, granted, that sales training prompt one was pretty long at a page, but this is very specific when working with very large data sets. And because this is very technical data, working with a web page, or rather working with the code behind a web page, you do have to get very specific very quickly. So why? Well, scraping publicly available data can be time and resource intensive. I was joking earlier about hiring interns from Marshfield High that for the intern program, you don't have to pay them, but they might Google through 15 companies in a day. In my experience, that some of it is high schooler attention spans, no knocks to them. Some of it is, do they really understand what they're looking at for the web page of like who's in charge, find the phone number, or put it into the spreadsheet in the correct format. And, if you didn't want to have a human being do it, you might require a fair amount of programming experience to figure out how to hook to a web page, change the back end of the web page, scrape the relevant words. This allows you to get contact list data in a big way. So this is the final prompt, and this is the web page analysis. And you can see that we are on page 4 and it goes all the way to page 9. So this is a full prompt that I use, and I can show results of the data and a couple of things that I'll hit as a highlight here that are pretty important, especially again, one of the things to remember is AI's aim to please. So the idea is we're looking to extract from generally available web pages based on some first, a marketing list that needs to be cleaned, that, we're looking for leadership details, some similar businesses, and any other information we can get about them. One thing we reminded is do not make up fake info. You will see this over and over again because it aims to please, don't make up stuff to make me happy. I just need the real stuff. Put NA if you can't find it. So this is all very specific to it making a series of code. extracting website reviews, phone, version, CEO search, leadership titles, similar businesses, what type of professional websites that they might be on, any other social media pages that we might want to find them on, primary name, address, leader for any other type of name. Maybe they don't go by CEO, but maybe president, maybe some other type of chief word, maybe head honcho. This kind of gives the appropriate context for like, all right, look for that type of word. And then, review it carefully. Any available values, use dynamic where you can. Don't give commentary or extra text. We just want JSON data. And then here's an example of expected output. So it gives a straight, like, I want it to look like this because it's going in a database. Now, extract it, put it here, and then hyperlinks extracted from the DOM, and then the actual text from the DOM, and that's just reading from something that came previously. So that 5-page prompt is how we get data out of a web page. And then very quickly, if you are wondering what the results look like, I might have one of them. I was doing this recently. I'm seeing if, there we go, file 2. So given that this does have contact information for people, this was all scraped off of Google. So technically none of it is private. So as an example, it was able to find for a fair amount of people just from the company name and then the city and the state. It was able to find out an executive, a street number. Sometimes it found a phone number, what it found on Google, and then any relevant business websites, and then iterated an information. But for most marketing, this would get you started. Who's in charge? And where do we start sending mailers to? Or that, hey, if I gave this to an intern, they wouldn't have been able to find who owns this company, and then I can just take them out of my list and not have to pay for it. So for data, this gets us information very quickly. And again, this is all of it. This was just scraped from Google. There's nothing private that's here. That's a little bit of a hint for what might be next month's webinar about, just how much you can find on public information. So that marketing data is effectively a Google scrubbed list right away. Now, granted, is Google's information up to date? I mean, who knows? That's all. It usually depends on what the business puts out there, but it's at least a start, and it's the same that a high school intern would be able to get me. So let's go ahead and run through a summary of the 3 case studies that we just looked at. So the scalability is incredible. I mean, that was the same system for, well, 2 of them are the same system. The third one's a little more involved for being able to increase workload without having to get a head count. Being able to quickly do financial analysis or service management or, account managing for, hey, am I doing well with this client? Am I doing bad? What's going on? I don't really have to hire more to be able to do it or add a new service. It's just using the model. And then also 24/7, doesn't sleep, doesn't need to. Kind of awesome. It works when you work. But some of the weaknesses for a lot of this is sometimes there's some complex initial setup. Hey, I got to make sure that my infrastructure is set up to be able to have the data easily referenceable, or in some of the cases of like the lead scrubber, there's a lot other pieces that have to go in to be able to sort this data out for me. The quality depends on how good of a question you can ask and really dialing in that you know what you're looking for. And then limited context awareness. Even when it's hooked into a lot of the internal data, if you're not telling it to go look at this folder, and I'm sure we've all bumped into weird folder permissions at some point in time. Sometimes it might say, hey, I can't go read that. And then it's up to us in the IT department to go figure out why. That's always fun. But there's a lot of opportunities. It can give a huge competitive advantage. Being able to get your marketing list grown bigger, faster, being able to detect service problems long before they really blow up. And despite it being a machine, you really can hit a more personalized experience. It can help a person as long as they kind of, if with the account manager or the owner or whoever can sit there and go, I wish I would, I wish I knew more about blank because it helped me do blank. It allows you to be able, like an assistant, get you to where you need to go. Then you can just focus on what it is you really need to do rather than trying to format an Excel sheet, read through it for half a day. So it does help get the busy work out of the way, but there's also a few threat things, especially for the focus on core competencies. You can hit over reliance. You can hit a part where there's too much deferral to the AI without really checking their work, especially in the scripting part. Hey, you keep prompting the AI, or you're not actually reading what it's outputting. You're just copying, pasting without reading. You do need to understand a little bit to it. And this is why the intern piece is really helpful. You wouldn't have an intern prepare a report for one of your customers without checking over it first. You want them to get the experience and be able to help put most of it there, but you want to give one last look to make sure, like, this is talking about what I'm looking for, right? There are security vulnerabilities and compliance issues, and the big one there is just what information you're feeding into it and making sure that it's going into the model that you intend it to. That's really helpful. That's, again, you're using the free one. The information's going out into the public, so use that Reddit example as much as possible. And then you got hallucinate. I mean, the hallucinations do happen. Something the AI is trying to please, and it doesn't really want to give you the answer, I don't know. So sometimes it makes something up so that you got your answer and you feel good. And that's why it's important that you can give it an out to say, hey, if you can't find it, just say not available. That's for that marketing piece. Because, Ryan works really hard to be able to get some of our postcards and mailers out. And I would hate for the AI to make up a street address for a client or for a prospect that was on the list. Ryan does all that hard work to make sure that that mailer goes out, and the post office laughs and says there is no such thing as 42 Wallaby Way, Sydney. So just something to consider with those, when you're asking for prompts, like be specific and give the AI an out, effectively saying it's okay to say, I don't know. So with that was a lot. Showed 3 great examples of how involved prompts can get. Dirty secret is all of those follow goal, context, expectation, source. You can have some quick ones, which are 2-3 sentences of goal, context, expectation, source, or you can get really involved, like a policy document or something you would hand to management for really diving into. It is very specific that these are the way that these things look. And you will look at this data and you will do it this and you will reference this, which is definitely very rigid programming. But with that, you can absolutely get resources from what we did today at systemsupport.com/AI guide. There was also some handouts in the chat too for anybody who wants to take some of these prompts, play around with them on their own. And with that, are there any questions from the audience while we've got a few minutes left here at the end? I do realize I'm bumping this close to lunch, and so a lot of people are probably like, if I ask a question, I'm going to kick off a discussion, and then I do get that.
Well, thankfully, if you have a post-launch, they have a post-launch question. The link to set up a meeting is on systemsupport.com/AI guide.
Awesome. Yeah, and it's anybody has suggestions for other case studies, don't hesitate to shoot me an email with them. Love to play around with them, because I think the most important thing to do here with these newer technologies is really put them to the test and see what they can and can't do. And what'll be really cool going forward as well, a lot of these AIs are kind of doing just one-step pieces, starting to build it so that, the AIs will link into each other multiple times so that, it's, all right, here's one prompt, and then it passes it to this prompt, and then it passes it to this prompt. And then it kind of has these knowledge chunks as it moves along. So that'll be pretty exciting. Well, awesome. Well, I hope everyone has a wonderful day. At least for today, it is sunny. I hope it stays that way. Hope it warms up a little bit. And I hope everybody has a wonderful day.
All right. Thanks, everybody.